Every year, when the monsoon arrives, people in Assam prepare for floods. They move their belongings to higher ground, they keep boats ready. They keep one eye on the river and another on the sky. Because in Assam, floods are not an unexpected disaster. They are an annual reality. But every once in a while, a flood arrives that reminds everyone, even those who have lived with the Brahmaputra all their lives, that nature is still capable of overwhelming everything in its path. This is one of those years. As of today, the official death toll has climbed to 68, and more than 5.24 lakh people continue to be affected across several districts. Hundreds of villages remain inundated. Thousands of hectares of farmland have been damaged. Thousands of families are still living in relief camps, uncertain about when or even whether they can return to normal life. Yet, beyond the northeast, many believe this disaster has not received the sustained national attention that its scale deserves. So, today, we are not just looking at what happened, we are asking why this flood has been so devastating, why Assam continues to face this crisis year after year, and what lessons the rest of India should be taking from it. Let's begin with the latest situation. The flood may have begun to recede in some places, but the crisis is far from over. The latest official figures show that more than 5.24 lakh people remain affected across Charadio, Golakat, Jorhat, Nagaon and Sivsagar. Hundreds of villages continue to remain underwater. Nearly 49,000 hectares of agricultural land have been damaged. Thousands of people remain in relief camps. Thousands of livestock have either perished or been displaced, dealing another devastating blow to rural livelihoods. These numbers are staggering, but numbers alone don't tell the story. Behind every statistics is someone who has lost a home, someone who has lost years of savings, someone who doesn't know how they will rebuild tomorrow. So, why this flood was different? People often say Assam floods every year. That is true. But saying that without context risks making this disaster sound routine. This year's floods were anything but routine. According to the Assam government, parts of Nagaland, including Mon, Mokokchung and Wokha in Assam's Charadio district recorded exceptionally high rainfall over a short period in mid-July, with departures several times above the seasonal average. That enormous volume of water rapidly flowed into the Brahmaputra and its tributaries. The result was widespread flooding across districts that were simply not prepared for water arriving at that speed and scale. Sivsagar, for instance, has described this as one of its worst floods in decades. Entire villages were submerged within hours. Roads vanished, communications snapped, and rescue teams found themselves racing against both time and rising water. To understand the scale of the devastation, we don't need to look at a map. We need to look at one village, Nepali Kuti in Sivsagar district. For years, this small village builds its economy around dairy farming. Milk from the village supplied nearby towns every single day. Generations of families depended on cattle for their livelihood. Then came the night of July 19. Flood waters entered with terrifying speed. Homes collapsed, families fled, hundreds of cattle, the backbone of the local economy, were swept away. Within a matter of hours, decades of hard work disappeared beneath muddy water. Today, what remains is mud, broken homes, damaged belongings, and families trying to salvage whatever they can. For them, this isn't just a flood. It is the loss of a lifetime. Now, if you have never lived in Assam, it's easy to assume the answer is simple. Heavy rain. But Assam's floods are far more complex than that. The Brahmaputra is one of the world's largest and most dynamic river systems. It begins in Tibet before flowing through Arunachal Pradesh and across Assam, joined along the way by dozens of tributaries flowing down from the Himalayas, Nagaland, Meghalaya and Bhutan. During the monsoon, every one of those rivers carries enormous volumes of water into Assam. But they don't just carry water, they carry sediment, millions of tons of it. Every time that sediment changes the river itself, the Brahmaputra constantly shifts its course. River banks collapse. New channels form. Entire villages disappear because the river literally changes direction. For many communities living along its bank, flooding is only one danger. Erosion can permanently erase the land beneath their homes. That is why Assam's flood problem cannot be understood simply as a weather event. It is also a river management challenge. So why embankment aren't enough? Every year, one question returns. If Assam has battled floods for decades, why hasn't the problem been solved? Over the years, thousands of kilometers of embankments have been constructed to protect vulnerable communities. In many places, they reduce flooding. But experts have long argued that embankments alone cannot solve the problem. The Brahmaputra carries one of the world's heaviest sediment loads. Its channels constantly shift. Extreme rainfall puts tremendous pressure on flood control infrastructure. When embankments breach, the consequences can be devastating. Researchers have repeatedly called for a broader approach, one that includes better river basin management, improved drainage, catchment protection, erosion control, scientific planning, and stronger forecasting systems. The challenge isn't simply keeping rivers inside embankments. It's learning how to live with one of the most powerful river systems on earth. So when relief couldn't reach the people, let's talk about that. One of the biggest challenges wasn't rescuing people, it was reaching them. The Assam government acknowledged that some flood-hit areas remained inaccessible even days after the disaster. Roads had disappeared, bridges had collapsed, communication networks had failed. Some villages could only be reached by boat. Others couldn't be reached immediately at all. Authorities even experimented with drone deliveries in certain locations, but technology could only do so much. Ultimately, it was the combined efforts of the Army, the Indian Air Force, NDRF, SDRF, Fire and Emergency Services, district administrations, local volunteers and ordinary villagers that brought relief to thousands of stranded people. It also highlighted just how difficult rescue operations become when entire landscape disappear underwater. So why many believe this deserves more national attention? Beyond the flood itself lies another conversation, one that has resurfaced almost every monsoon. Many people in Assam believe disasters in the northeast rarely receive sustained national attention despite affecting lakhs of people. This year, actors Bhumi and Ada Sharma, singer Papun and actor Adil Hussain all appealed for greater awareness of the crisis. Civil society organizations echoed those concerns. The All Assam Students Union or AASU argued that if Assam's tea, oil, natural gas and other resources are considered national assets, then recurring floods and erosion should also be treated as matter of national concern. At the same time, it is important to note that the center has been involved to relief efforts. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reviewed the flood situation with Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma and assured the state of the center's support. A central assessment team has also begun evaluating the damage. Even so, many in Assam feel that national attention often fades long before rehabilitation is complete. Whether one agrees with the perception or not, it is a conversation that has persisted for years. So why should the rest of India care? Because this isn't just Assam's problem. Assam is India's gateway to the northeast. It is one of the country's most important tea-producing states. It has significant oil and natural gas reserves. It is home to globally significant ecosystem, including Kaziranga National Park. When Assam floods, roads and railways are disrupted. Agriculture suffers. Local economies slow down. Supply chains are affected. Thousands of families lose their livelihood they spend decades building. The consequences extend well beyond the flood waters. So, let's look at the challenges ahead. Scientists continue to study how changing climate patterns are influencing extreme rainfall across South Asia. At the same time, experts point to a combination of factors that increase Assam's flood vulnerability: rainfall, sediment, deposition, riverbank erosion, changing river channels, deforestation in some catchment areas, development in flood-prone zones, and the limitations of existing flood control measures. There is no single cause, and there is no single solution, which means recovery cannot simply be about rebuilding what was lost. It must also be about reducing future risk. So, let's look at the road to recovery. For now, the focus remains on relief and rehabilitation. Medical teams continue working to prevent disease outbreaks. School and public infrastructure will need extensive repairs. Farmers will have to restore damaged fields. Families will have to rebuild homes. For many, recovery will take months. For others, years, because the flood may end when the water recedes, but rebuilding a life takes much longer. Floods are not new to Assam. Neither is resilience. Year after year, families rebuild homes, replant fields, and begin again. But resilience should never become an excuse for accepting repeated devastation as inevitable. The real question is no longer whether Assam will flood again. History tells us it will. The question is whether India will continue responding to these disasters one monsoon at a time, or finally address them as a long-term national challenge that requires sustained attention, scientific planning, and lasting solution. Because once the flood waters disappear from our television screens, life does not return to normal for the people living along the Brahmaputra. For them, the hardest part is only just beginning. That's all we have for now. Keep watching Hornbill TV.